a big crowd. This is a big, big, beautiful crowd. I wish the fake news back there would show it. I wish they'd spin their cameras and show it, because nobody would believe it. You know, the other day, Biden was saying, I got big crowds, meaning him. He gets big crowds. He doesn't know what a big... And there were like 93 people there. You know, Joe Biden talks about, we have to stop MAGA. MAGA means make America great again, Joe. It means make America great again. That's all we want to do. If he was doing the job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with a gorgeous ocean, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look.
Thank you.
There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down, see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Instead, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator
What's happening?
elected and to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There
not
he is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. And it's much tougher than if it happened. You know, we had the strongest border ever. In recorded history, we had the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring, I try and explain that. Oh, there's a, wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look what happened.
Are you ready? On you. Ready. Move. Move. Go. All guys here. Ready? Are we good? Shooters down. Are we good to move? We're clear. Let's move. We're clear.
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head, it's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus.
Let me get my shoes.
Okay, let's shoot down. Get the shield.
Watch out.
Wait.
like you mean it.
I've been at all these events, so it's very secure. Now, the only way anything else could possibly happen is maybe something in the distance that was outside of that perimeter, but usually the perimeter is big enough that you won't have any issue, as we may have just happened there.
Could you tell where the shooting was coming from? Was it
It
from
was
the
coming
crowd or from outside of the crowd?
I think it was like one of these buildings back here.
Right. So you think it was coming from higher up, possibly?
Behind the fences, yeah.
But the security is incredibly heavy for a former president. He's obviously a figure that raises emotions as well, and that means the security is also very high for those reasons.
Other people did witness the president grabbing his ear. We have those reports coming in from several news agencies that there was blood spotted on the ear of the former president as well. Again, if you're just joining us, shots have been reported.
What did you see, sir?
I heard the shots. I thought it was firecrackers to begin with. Somebody over there was screaming, he's been shot, he's been shot. So I made my way over. I said, I'm an emergency department physician. Let me help you. The guy had spun around, was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here. There was lots of blood, and he had brain matter there. And so I got him. There's a helicopter coming in to get him. I got people there really helpful. I got
Was
him
there only
up
one
on the
person
bench.
shot that you saw?
Then I did CPR, did chest compressions as well as I breathed for him.
Greg was someone who was here. You weren't inside the event,
Nope.
but you were just outside. Tell us what you
Yes.
saw. And
So we had a party here all day. At the you can see behind us at the Brinkles Farm and Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, you know, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up. And probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking, I'm estimating here, I have no idea, you know, but we noticed the guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, you know, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
Binoculars.
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? I mean, this is not a big place.
Did you see, obviously everyone, when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh, yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't quite know who's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy?
Absolutely, 100%. Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
It's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in muted colors, tan type clothing. We saw the rifle flinging around as he was trying to crawl I mean, we saw the rifle, 100%.
Do you know about guns? Do you know what kind of weapon it was?
Oh, I absolutely know about guns, for sure.
Do you know
No,
what
I mean, it was a rifle of some sort. I wouldn't know, I wasn't close enough to read the label on it.
No,
but
sure. But a high-velocity
it was a rifle of some sort. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you process what you've just seen?
I don't know what to say, man. I'll tell you is, if I walked up close to there with anything that Secret Service considered a problem, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. But I don't know why a guy who we're standing there pointing out to police and Secret Service is crawling up the roof.
Were you outside the security perimeter?
Yes, right there by that tree. Yeah. We were outside the security perimeter. But my question is, there's only a few buildings around here. Why is Secret Service not on every building here?
Well, there's a whole bunch of questions, I think, that are going to come.
There's a whole bunch of questions.
And you didn't see the guy. There's been reports of a guy on that roof.
No.
Phil, you didn't see him. You didn't see him either, Colby.
No, but my friend told me that there were the guy on the roof.
Right.
You saw the snipers turn.
Yeah, I seen the snipers off the cattle barn and the horse barn and aim at the building that
So the
he
Secret
shot from.
Service guys, right?
Yeah.
You saw them turn and aim?
Yeah.
Right, and you saw them fire? Did you see the flashes of them firing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A gentleman who was along the fence line, I'm just meeting him right now. Sir, thank you so much. You're talking to KDKA. Can I have your name and what did you see and hear?
There's Ben Macer. I was at the same point that probably the witness you were talking to earlier. I was up at the fence line, saw the guy move from roof to roof, told an officer that he was on the roof. The officer come looking. I went back to where heard that there was somebody that could see the person, so I went back to where they were standing, saw the person, went back and told the officer again that if he goes back to that particular spot, he can see the person, figuring that he would go in radio. And when I turned around to go back to where I was is when the gunshots started, and then it was just chaos, and we all came running away, and that was that.
So, let me get this right. So you actually saw the man on top of the roof behind us?
Yes.
And you're saying people reported that to law enforcement, saying there is a man on the roof of the building?
Yes, there were two officers that were actively searching. You could tell they were searching and looking for somebody, and we just tried to help and tell them where the guy was. And at some point, somebody obviously found him, or the snipers found him, and that was the end of his decisions.
Did you get a good look at the guy on the roof?
I did not have a good look at him, but I just seen him going from one building to another. There was a little gap in between, and he went. And when I went back to see the people that I heard that could see him, seen a quick look at him there, and then went to the officer to tell the officer, and that was all that I got.
I was kind of looking around, just trying to see where the shots were coming from. It seemed to me like the shots were coming from behind the bleachers. It seemed to me the man got hit in the head from behind. He was killed instantly, as far as I could tell. And at that point, a state police and a SWAT team, started evacuating the bleachers, and then I helped carry the man out of the bleachers to a tent that was behind the bleachers.
You helped carry the man yourself. What was his condition when you were carrying him?
He's deceased. He died.
How close were you to him?
A couple yards. I mean, it wasn't very far.
Did you know the man?
No, it's a police ranger. They put a towel over his head and then carried him off. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, the man that got hit, there was no assistance that needed to be given. And unfortunately, his family witnessed the whole thing. It seemed like he had several family members in the bleacher with him. And they were quite upset. They didn't know, they were in shock. They didn't quite know what's going on.
If these pictures are what they appear to be, if that is a shooter deceased on top of that building 150 metres away from the rally venue, if that is the shooter who discharged the bullets that led to the incident inside that rally venue, there will be questions asked about where the Secret Service security perimeter ended, if this building was outside that Secret Service perimeter, and if it was outside, why was it outside?
Thanks for coming, folks. I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do. Okay?
Mr. President, do you think this was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough to, I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried for your own safety? Was the security failing, Mr. President?
I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI Pittsburgh field office.
To give you an operational rundown, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens.
And within about 10 to 15 minutes, a number of sounds were heard, and it became apparent that shots were being fired in that direction. It was a chaotic scene. Law enforcement, I believe, acted heroically, quickly identifying and neutralizing the threat, as well as responding to assist the various victims. PSP had a significant presence on the scene along with all of our federal partners at the time of the shooting. We have since enhanced that presence significantly, bringing in resources from all over the Commonwealth to ensure that we have a speedy, thorough investigation.
How long do you think that gunman was hiding up there? I mean, we saw the snipers up there, as the crowds were kind of mulling in. It looked like they had a pretty good viewpoint to check everyone out. So how long had that guy been up there?
That will all be part of the investigation, but I can tell you that preliminarily it appears everything unfolded very quickly.
But it wasn't like he was inside the security perimeter, right? That building he was on was outside of the area
That's correct.
That's usually checked? How far outside of it was it?
We'll have that information for you. It was some distance outside of the
Colonel, can you comment on reports that there were people who saw someone on the roof and tried to alert authorities?
We're following up on those. I will tell you that I am aware of those, and I am aware that law enforcement had responded to a number of reports of suspicious activity. The specific response to this will be all part of the after action, but yes, law enforcement was responding to check on several suspicious occurrences.
I understand that it's very early and there's still going to be a lot of questions, but I mean, is this a failure of security?
Really, at this point, we're not going to make that assessment. There's an active investigation. A lot of things need to occur investigatively to make those determinations of what, if any, failures there were. So really, we can't comment on that at this time.
So you guys say if Secret Service had checked those buildings, or we're keeping a close eye, or is that
really
something?
have to defer to Secret Service.
Was there any law enforcement at the AGR property prior to the event? Like, were there police at that location at any point during the event?
Are you saying the location where the shooter was located?
Yes.
I don't have any information on that. You'd have to refer to Secret Service.
Why are there any Secret Service agents here right now for this press conference?
The Secret Service wasn't available for the press conference at this time.
Was there anything about this venue that made it particularly difficult to secure?
I would defer to the Secret Service to answer that. They would have done the initial assessment.
Was the rooftop part of what was being secured? Was the rooftop, given its proximity to the event, part of that process?
It's my understanding that was outside of the perimeter.
So from what you've been briefed on, it sounds like law enforcement only knew he was up there until shots were fired. Is that what you're hearing?
So that is the assessment this time. All that it is really days, weeks, and months.
But how
of
surprised are you that he
investigation.
was able to get off like 4 or 5 shots?
It is surprising, but again, to get the truth, all the details of that will come out later in the investigation.
Come back to the perimeter of this building. I think it's going to be really difficult for people to understand that this building with a very high vantage point, some 100 meters away from where this is happening, isn't part of that perimeter. What goes into that conversation over what is in and out and why wouldn't that be?
Again, the Secret Service really needs to answer that question.
In their defense, I mean, what I would want to say is it is incredibly difficult to have a venue open to the public and to secure that against any possible threat, against a very determined attacker. That's a huge lift to try and do it.
Good afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. He was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired, and he lost his life. God love him. We're also praying for the full recovery of those who were injured, and we're grateful to the Secret Service agents and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risked their lives literally for our nation. The FBI is leading this investigation, which is still in its early stages. We don't yet have any information about the motive of the shooter. We know who he is. I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. I've directed an independent review of the national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened, and we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well. And so may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when you spoke to President Trump yesterday, what did he tell you, sir?
Mr. President, shifting our campaign strategy, Mr. President.
Couple of ground rules. This briefing is only about updates to the RNC security plan. The individuals speaking here today are not in a position to speak about the incident that occurred yesterday in Butler, Pennsylvania. We'd like to keep the conversation and the questions on topic in order to make the best use of your time.
I don't understand why it is that you had one of the most significant events in the Secret Service's history occurred yesterday, and no one from the Secret Service has publicly decided to take questions about what happened. You had the FBI today openly giving us an on-the-record briefing about their investigation, but yet we still have not heard from anyone from the Secret Service about what happened, about what the agency knew, about the lead up into the event concerning security. And I just don't understand how anyone would think that that's okay.
So my role in the Secret Service is the RNC coordinator, so that is my purview. Any questions regarding yesterday's event can be directed to our Public Affairs Office out of DC.
Right, I understand that, but this is the first time that anyone from the Secret Service has publicly even spoken to the media since this happened. There was a press conference last night that the Secret Service was not at. State officials and the FBI was there, but yet the Secret Service has been absent as a result of that. It just raises all sorts of questions about why the Secret Service is not willing to answer questions.
So again, I'm the Secret Service's RNC coordinator, so I can speak to the RNC security planning. I'd refer any questions regarding yesterday's incident to our DC Public Affairs Office.
Just to be clear, did you or did you not make changes to the security plan based on the events of yesterday?
There have been no changes to our current operational security plans for this event.
No change. But we are taking care of this city. Period.
Will you be doing daily updates, or how will we get information?
Have you been able to talk with Director Cheatle? Have you talked with Director Cheatle?
Why isn't she here?
Have you talked with Director Cheatle? Why not?
Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Let's never lose sight of who we are. Let's remember we are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
But Secretary, do you call this a security failure on the part of the Secret Service?
An incident like this cannot happen. That is precisely why President Biden directed an independent review, so that that review, its conclusions and its recommendations have the full confidence of the American public. We will carefully analyze in an independent and thorough fashion what occurred. Recommendations will be made. Those recommendations will be implemented. We are in a dynamic threat environment. We adapt to that dynamism every single day. Changes have been made to the Republican National Convention, just as the 18-month planning calls for. It calls for changes based on changes in the threat environment, and that is where we are now.
If you don't want to say, because a review is still happening, who failed in terms of the security around this rally, do you agree that it was a failure? You said this cannot happen, but first and foremost, before you make sure you make the changes, you have to acknowledge what a failure this was.
Kate, when I say that something like this cannot happen, we are speaking of a failure. We are going to analyze through an independent review how that occurred, why it occurred, and make recommendations and findings to make sure it doesn't happen again. I couldn't be clearer.
Secretary, just finally, you said changes will be made, an independent review will happen. This cannot happen. Do you expect, or would you want to see people lose their jobs over what has just happened? Donald Trump had a near-death experience. One man is now dead, and 2 more people were shot, seriously shot and wounded, and recovering now in a hospital.
Kate, I have full confidence in the leadership of the United States Secret Service. An independent review will make factual findings and recommendations based on those findings, and I look forward to studying those findings and recommendations and acting accordingly.
Secretary, I was literally just handed this. We have new reporting coming in from CNN's Whitney Wild that says a spokesman for U.S. Secret Service tells CNN the agency did not personally sweep the building where the attempted assassin shot former President Trump, but instead leaned on local law enforcement to conduct security at that location. Are you okay with that?
Kate, let me make 2 points. Number one, and let me repeat, that we will defer to an independent review of the facts to determine what those facts are and make findings and recommendations based on it, number one. Number two, in campaign events, historically and now, including the conventions themselves, we work collaboratively with our federal partners as well as with our state and local partners. These are very, very significant undertakings, and we work seamlessly and closely with our partners across the national security, homeland security enterprise. I am going to defer to the independent review, and we will take those findings and recommendations and act on them accordingly.
Let's bring in Florida Congressman and former U.S. Army sniper, Corey Mills. What kind of shot was this, Corey, from 130 yards?
Look, at the end of the day, this is a shot that your basic training boot camp soldier is requested to make within their 9-week period. This is one of the easiest shots, and they train all the way out till 300 or 500. And when I was doing the counter sniper, it wasn't with the United States Army. It was actually when I was with the State Department and was doing this exact thing, which is trying to look at going out with an advance team, establishing what the perimeter is, and then as a sniper, when you would set up, you'd put together your range sketch or your range fan cards, and that would tell you where your 100, your 200, your 300, and you'd identify the areas of threat that you would be able to mitigate. And if there's multiple targets, you understand that your elevation and windage knob wouldn't have to be messed with, especially at 160 yards. You could literally just look, quickly glance, and know from the reference point, whether it be a building, whether it be a lone tree, whether it be a parking lot, maybe it's a road. Bottom line is that this is massive negligence to the point of me speculating on what was intentional and what wasn't.
Wow.
If you saw someone climbing onto a roof that you hadn't authorized any clearance on, it's got a clear line of sight. It's exactly adjacent to the shooting where the president was sitting, and you're talking about a pop shot, and you got people yelling. There should have been an emergency frequent comms channel that they could have said, we have a shooter on the roof, shooter on the roof. Secret Service should have rushed the stage and immediately took the president and took him off, and then responded with a counter sniper. The shot should not have gone off. That is the failure in itself.
So when you have these counter snipers waiting until 8 rounds are fired, what accounts for that?
To be honest with you,
after the first shot, you get a return fire immediately?
The minute that a shot rang out, they should have already been on scope. Your spotter should have already have called the distance if you hadn't looked at your range card, and you should have immediately engaged. Okay. There should have been no reason to have waited a single second. This is a massive security breach. This is a huge failure at negligence is at best. This is a shot that within 5 minutes, I could teach you to make 9 out of 10 times.
Good morning. And in just the last few minutes, we received a statement from the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, who responded to some of the criticism the agency has received. She said that they are working with all federal and state and local agencies, and they understand how it would happen and to prevent it from ever happening in the future. She also says that they're prepared to participate in the independent oversight that President Biden has called for, and also to work with the oversight committees in Congress. It's important to keep in mind the Secret Service was already the subject of a great deal of criticism from members of Congress for a series of lapses at the agency. The assassination attempt against former President Trump has now led to a flood of calls for investigations into what went wrong and how the agency should be changed.
We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on.
The building where the alleged shooter's body was found was roughly 148 yards from where the president spoke and outside the Secret Service's security perimeter. And 2 sources familiar with the agency's operations tell NBC News its roof was identified as a potential vulnerability ahead of the event. A spokesperson for the Secret Service says they designated that rooftop under the jurisdiction of local law enforcement and worked with them to maintain event security, but no one was posted on this particular building. The local district attorney says his office provided support, including sniper teams, but the Secret Service was in charge of security outside of the venue and ran the show. Local law enforcement leaders say they are investigating their preparation for the event and their response after the shooting. And the House Homeland Security Chairman Mark Green sent a letter to DH Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas demanding information related to the security plans around the rally.
And Director Cheatle said in her statement this morning that she's prepared to work with Congress. The Oversight Committee already has plans to invite her to testify at a hearing on July 22nd.
We are thankful for the heroic agents of the United States Secret Service who so quickly and bravely responded to the threat at Saturday's campaign event. Both prior to and after the events of this past weekend, the Secret Service enhanced former President Trump's protection. This includes enhancements related to securing the former president during the Republican National Convention this week. An independent review will be conducted to understand the facts regarding protection of the event and make findings and recommendations accordingly. I will therefore not be able to comment on the facts subject to investigation and review at this time.
Does the president have confidence in the Secret Service director after Saturday's failures?
I have 100% confidence in the director of the United States Secret Service. I have 100% confidence in the United States Secret Service. And what you saw on stage on Saturday with respect to individuals putting their own lives at risk for the protection of another is exactly what the American public should see every single day. It is what I indeed do.
And a few House Republicans have suggested that this was an inside job, that this administration or the Secret Service wanted Donald Trump to get shot. There are conspiracy theories proliferating online. How do you feel? How does the rank and file feel when they hear that?
So let me just say this. First of all, that is preposterous, and it is also dangerous to propagate rumors that are so unequivocally false and provocative. And as the president so powerfully said to the entire nation, we have to tamp down the rhetoric in this country. The rhetoric itself creates a threat environment that really is quite dynamic and evolving.
Mr. Secretary, what concerns you about the fact there were witnesses who had identified a gunman on the building? There was local law enforcement assigned to that building, and of course the Secret Service having the overall responsibility. Where do you think a breakdown may have occurred? Is it because you had to rely on local law enforcement?
There have been statements by many people with respect to what did and did not occur. We're going to let the investigation and the review deliver the factual findings.
Thanks so much. Law enforcement officials tell ABC News that the building where the shooter was on the roof was actually the staging area for the local police tactical team who was watching over the crowd. I understand you can't comment, you have an independent review, but why would the Secret Service not be tasked with overseeing that building with a direct line of sight at the former president?
So once again, I will not comment on specific facts or asserted facts.
Was the local law enforcement in direct communication in real time with the Secret Service, or was there some sort of breakdown there?
Again, I'm not in a position to speak of particular facts of what did and did not occur on Saturday.
How is it that we are now about 48 hours out from this, just shy of that, and we still don't have any information on a motive?
So remember something, that the assailant is deceased, and you will recall, I think, in a very, very tragic shooting in Las Vegas quite a number of years ago, because of the fact that the assailant then was shot and killed, a motive was not identified at all.
A motive there, Mr. Secretary. Are you suggesting
Correct.
that we might never find one?
I'm not suggesting anything. I just cited that as an example of the difficulty in identifying a motive.
Just quickly, if I may, Secretary, can you fill out any more of the timeline of what local law enforcement knew or didn't know before the shooting? This is in reference to this interview with an individual who said that he saw somebody crawling up the building, and we're still a little unclear on the timeline of how that information was communicated.
I cannot speak to what did and did not occur.
WPXI reported that a member of Beaver County, Pennsylvania's Emergency Services Unit, noticed a suspicious man on the roof nearly 30 minutes before shots were fired, called it in, and took a picture of the person. The suspicious person, later identified as Thomas Crooks, 20, was first flagged to local police officers by rallygoers on their way into the event. The attendees reported they saw Crooks pacing and behaving strangely near the magnetometers, 4 officials told NBC News. Local police officers began pursuing Crooks on foot, the official said. During the pursuit, the US official said, local police told the Secret Service they were looking for a suspicious person near the event. At some point, the officer was hoisted by another officer onto the roof of the building where the shooter was in position. The shooter focused his rifle towards the officer, who let go and fell off the roof. The officer retreated down the ladder, and Crooks quickly took a shot toward former President Donald Trump, and that's when the US Secret Service counter-snipers shot him.
Though stunning and unexpected, authorities had already considered the gunman's rooftop perch a worry. Witnesses say they spotted a threat that day.
We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle.
But the Secret Service had actually identified the building near the Trump rally as a potential vulnerability in the days before the event, according to 2 sources familiar with the agency's operations. But officials say no officers had been posted there. A key question is why. Secret Service officials say they had designated that local law enforcement would secure that building.
Any type of missteps that were made or miscommunication that was made, it has to be addressed.
The former president was wounded. One of his supporters died. A couple of more people were seriously injured. Was this a massive security failure?
I have had 2 meetings in the Situation Room with all the intelligence communities, the FBI, Secret Service Center, and I've asked for a totally independent analysis. And we'll see what happens when that comes back. What we did see was the Secret Service who responded risked their lives in responding. They're ready to give their lives to the president. The question is, should they have anticipated what happened? Should they have done what they needed to do to prevent this from happening? That's a question that's an open question.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Oh, I've heard from them.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly. I've sat down in a Situation Room downstairs. The Secret Service, the FBI, the National Security Agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements. And there's 2 pieces of this, too. And it's not an excuse, it's just nor an explanation. There's a major piece of this relates to domestic, local law enforcement. They play a large role. And so there's It's a different I'm not saying they weren't competent either. I'm just saying it's a complicated process.
We continue here with the news tonight. There are fast-moving developments after the assassination attempt tonight. Remarkable new images here. The alleged gunman seen climbing to the roof just minutes before opening fire at that rally. You can actually hear people in the crowd yelling to an officer, pointing him out. And now we learn that law enforcement was actually using that building as a staging area, and how the gunman climbed onto the roof, the wall outside that building.
Stunning new video tonight showing the moment Donald Trump's would-be assassin climbed onto the roof of that building just 2 minutes before he opened fire.
Yeah, look, there he is.
You can hear bystanders desperately trying to alert police. Authorities now using that video as part of the investigation. And tonight, ABC News has learned that heavily armed local police were stationed inside that building and missed Thomas Crooks climbing up the outside of the building to the roof. The same building was being used as a staging area for local police, according to 2 law enforcement officials. And Butler Township officials are confirming ABC News' reporting that a local police officer climbed up the roof and confronted Brooks moments before the shooting.
The officer grabbed hold of the edge of the building, pulled himself up to be able to look, and according to what he's told me, shooter turned, rifle was pointed at the officer. The officer, defensive move, kind of ducked, fell, lost his grip on the building.
Investigators tonight trying to determine whether roof access had been properly locked down. The shooter climbing seemingly unimpeded, about 400 feet from the stage, with a direct line of sight on the former president.
Take a look at what happened.
In Washington, lawmakers demanding answers, calling on the Secret Service director to appear before Congress. We sat down with Director Kim Cheatle today for an exclusive interview.
What was your reaction when you saw the events unfold on Saturday?
Shock, and then concern, obviously, for the former president. This is an event that should have never happened.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
The President and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on, absolutely?
I do plan to stay on. I'm being told that the shooter was actually identified as a potential threat. Person of suspicion. Units started responding to seek that individual out. Unfortunately, with the rapid succession of how things unfolded, by the time that individual was eventually located, they were on the rooftop and were able to fire off at the former president.
Should that roof have been secure, period?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, you know, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, you know, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
Cheatle says the Secret Service was responsible for the inner perimeter of the rally, where Trump was. But local police were responsible for the outer perimeter, where the gunman was located.
We will be transparent both internally with my own folks and externally with members of Congress and with the American public. That's what the public deserves.
And this idea that you have a sloped roof is going to prevent you from doing so. Okay, let's go ahead and weigh that out for a moment. So you couldn't have put a patrol car that's locked with the lights on in the parking lot of AGR to be a deterrent. You couldn't have put someone on the ground to ensure there's no permissible climbing environment to get them onto the rooftop. They were there for 26 minutes is what was reported. 2 different people who were attending the rally took photos and sent it to the law enforcement officer. And the law enforcement officer said that when he came onto the roof, that the gentleman had the assassin, would-be assassin, pointed his rifle at him. Why would you not have an emergency comms channel through your coordination with the Secret Service to yell, shooter on the roof, shooter on the roof, shooter on the roof, have your Secret Service detail come immediately, take the president, get him off the stage, and then allow your counter-sniper team to then mitigate the threat? Everything about this, at best, is gross negligence, but I am not actually taking anything off the table. This is why I think that we have to have a J13 style.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not going to say what was negligence, what was intent, what was possible. I am from the United States military, where we used to what if every single scenario, and you don't take anything off the table until it's confirmed.
The counter sniper team, one of them, there were 4 counter sniper teams that were on location, was on a sloped roof. Okay, they were on a roof that was very similar, in fact, to the roof that the assassin was on. And in this photo, based on what we know, they were looking absolutely right in the direction, and it appears that the shooter was on the other side of the slope. But if we don't have the capability to see over a 6-inch sort of centerpiece of a rooftop, we are in serious trouble. I also want to highlight what she says after that part. That there were 4 counter sniper teams, as I mentioned, including 2 from Secret Service and 2 from local law enforcement, stationed in or near the building. So they're saying that there was a sniper team possibly inside or near that building.
Look, the bottom line is,
that wasn't aware there was someone on top of it.
whether they're sitting there trying to stay cool in the air conditioner, they should be doing their job. And I can tell you that sloped roof is nothing that the Department of State and the Secret Service and the military doesn't sit on all the time. It's actually not a slope at all in that one case. You're talking about something that you could utilize rubber bottom shoes. You could basically utilize a platform that allows you to basically secure yourself in. That excuse doesn't pass muster. This continued cover-up does not muster. We need an investigation. We need answers for the American people. We need to ensure that there's no longer any political attempts to cause violence against our president or against anyone who ever runs in the future. This is unacceptable.
And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this kind of thing opens
it's so negligent, it almost seems intense.
It begs all of these questions that start coming.
You said that local law enforcement was responsible for that building. What did you mean by that?
So Secret Service respects local law enforcement, and we could not do our job either investigatively or on our protective mission without them. In Pennsylvania, in fact, on that same day, they were also working the First Lady trip and a vice presidential trip. So I understand the constraints that they're under, and as I said earlier, we couldn't do our job without them. At that particular site, we divided up areas of responsibility, but the Secret Service is solely responsible for the design and the implementation and the execution of the site. And that's what I was trying to stress, was that we just divided up areas of responsibility, and they provided support to those areas of responsibility.
CNN, of course, has reporting that the Secret Service increased security for former President Trump because of a credible threat from Iran. I've spoken with several people who look at the perimeter, hearing that news, look at the perimeter and say, how, knowing that there was a credible threat against the former president, how could that perimeter be so small that it excluded a building just 150 yards away from the podium?
I can't get into the specifics of any threats, but obviously with all of our protectees, we're constantly monitoring the threats that are out there, and we design our security plan based on that, also depending on the venue and the environment that we're in. And on that particular day, a full advance had been completed, but this is also why we are doing an internal review, and we look forward to the external review as well. And obviously, if there are things that we need to change about our policies or our procedures or our methods, we are certainly going to do so.
Was that perimeter too small?
The perimeter encompassed the area that we needed to secure for the event that we had on that day. What happened is a terrible incident and should never happen, and we are obviously going to make sure that moving forward, we take whatever lessons that come out of this and adjust accordingly.
CBS reported that one of the 3 snipers apparently stationed inside the building saw the shooter outside looking up at the roof, returning once to use a rangefinder and again with a backpack. By the time other officers came for backup, he had climbed on top of the building and was positioned above and behind the snipers inside the building, the officer said. 2 other officers who heard the sniper's call tried to get onto the roof. State police started rushing to the scene, but by that time, a Secret Service sniper had already killed Crooks, the officer said. More importantly, by that time, the shooter was able to kill.